Day, and I know you've been waiting for this.
Class systems are complicated.
Yes, comrades, the revolution is finally here. However, the revolution will not be televised, not shown on this video. You can serve the revolution by sharing this video anywhere and everywhere. How did we get from a slave society to a free one, from feudalism to capitalism? Fiction is often about radical change in the social order, especially sci-fi and fantasy, and class systems are an important element of realizing your world's history and why your world is the way it is. Understanding this sort of thing can give your world that little bit of extra depth. So, let's talk about how class systems fall, or change. But fall sounded more dramatic, so I wanted to say that.
Yeah.
We're going to do this in 5 parts. Peaceful change, violent change, what happens after class, plague, and war.
Alright. So, peaceful change. Move from the dome to the tree. Here, I did my gambling when you weren't online, so you wouldn't copy me. Okay, so violent change is adventurer, exodus. Talk, Sean, guys. Yeah, what's up, Callie? What's up, brother? Where you at? Why are we not boring? We are waiting. Do continue. Why are we not boring? Oh, I thought I was boring. Like, I have interacted with writers who bore me. I don't know. Fits a niche. Expresses ideas, doesn't hide their shit. I know so many people that won't even show their shit on screen. They won't even talk about it. It's like, what's the point of streaming your work if you're not fucking showing your work? We are kindred writers. Thus, we aren't boring to each other. Exactly. We just fit into this category that we just happen to fall on. I think it's also like a humor factor, right? Like, I try to make everything as entertaining and funny as possible, and as ridiculous as possible, and as out of there as possible. That's why I try to make the reacts artificially as long as possible. We have found it. It is the reason. That's what keeps you going. That's what hooks people. Because they're like, oh, what's going to be the next thing? What's the next truth bomb and Tox is going to drop on us? Oh, by the way... You know, what's a good one? Oh, the 12th is Werewoman Day, because it's a full moon. So beware of the 12th, my friends. This is our niche. Our humor is irrelevant, but our souls are pure. True. Only those who cannot withstand a makeup stream shall be cast out. Of their own volition, of course, because that's like a deal breaker for a lot of people. But hey, you clicked on the picture, so you obviously thought it was a chick, and then you saw me and you were like, wait, what the fuck? Leaving the dome for land. What's up, Callie? I was like... Enters stream. So the after class is the Adventurer Guild being created, right? The Adventurers Guild. The violent change is the exodus of the adventurers and the leaving of the dome for land, which started the Beastman War, right? Dude in a bikini. I now know I will enjoy it here. True, Caliber. It's all about understanding your audience. And, like, I don't know, presenting the most, like, outward extremes. Okay, so for Plague, there's the possibility that the shard of anima has infected life on Gaia. New game plus mechanic at second book allows entrance of this corruption to be expressed and explained. Take 3 women, 3 Mexicans, and 6 blacks. What does it make? If you're willing to be improper with your terminology. I'm assuming I know 2 of the 3 words. A bean burrito. A sprinkler? I mean, I'm trying to think as, like, explicitly sexual as possible, and I just don't see it, Sean. A sprinkler. There's also the disease when adventurers first left the tree. And this kind of idea inspired by, I forget what the fucking anime is. But it's like, it's an isekai. It's like, think of the sound of the commercial sprinklers. Oh, okay. I get it now. Yeah. Oh my god. Okay, that's fucking funny, Sean. That's fucking funny. That is how you beat racism, guys. Humor is how you beat racism. Because we can all laugh at a good joke. And it doesn't... Like, we're not... My Catholic homeschool friends told me that one. Oh, they have the worst shit for that. It's fucking great. Oh, okay. Okay, and then we have war. And war is Beastman War, second Beastman War, and of course, third Beastman War. Because the first Beastman War is the octopi coming onto land for the first time. The second Beastman War is after the moon falls out of the sky, and the monarch moves into the tree with everyone. And then they attack the tree for like 400 years or so, or 300 years, and they can't break through the tree, so they leave. And then the third Beastman War is what happens during the book. And then there's also the Civil War of adventurers versus citizens. The nastiest jokes I've ever heard came from them. My best friend, whose mom shared a maternity room with my mom for a week when we were born. My mom even changed his diapers in the hospital before I popped out. Nice, Sean. That's sick. It's great to have that kind of, like, connection in a familial and friend state, you know? Like I say, the only reason I'm alive is because my neighbor was our nurse who we knew through the church. So connections are everything. But anyways, let's get this boat a-going.
Oh, and cheers to the writing and world-building software Campfire for sponsoring this video. We'll be reviewing it later. Part 1. Peaceful change. Class systems can change or end when the barriers to class mobility significantly lower, allowing people to cross into different classes easily, and this is either up or down. Thus, the class system as they know it ceases to exist. Like, I don't know, imagine if millennials could no longer buy a house, a critical part of entering the middle class. A good example of this is from the Tang Dynasty, the competitive civil service examination system for the recruitment of the members of the ruling class.
Did I tell you about Lone Bat? I went to get food. That's all good, Callie, no worries. No, Sean, I have not heard of the Lone Bat.
Countered the decline of the pre-Tang and early Tang aristocracy. The Chinese examination system made it radically easier for non-nobles to enter the ruling class. Here, those barriers to ruling of being rich, noble, or already powerful were undermined by a new political religious idea to the point that it marked
Oh, I studied this in college? Cool.
It was a massive shift in the class system of the day.
What is this? Poor people getting an education? Not on my watch.
A major factor to consider here are guilds and unions, which have been important players in
Ooh, that's an interesting thought. How, like, the idea of a solid union overall inside of the guilds that facilitate, like, government subsidy for activities underneath that guild to facilitate, or not facilitate, but to entice people to join those guilds and learn those crafts. So it's kind of like a government grant in a way. Once like they feel like there's not enough people doing something, they'll be like, okay, well, we need more people doing it, so we'll either raise the price, we'll change some things to make, just generally make it so more people want to do this. And then that kind of works its way into being a union, where it's like it takes it out of the government's hands and puts it into the people's hands of those situations, and then lets them deal with it, and then basically just talk to the government after and like ask, what do you need, right? I started writing a fanfic about Batgirl from Batman the Animated Series from the Warner Brothers. Bane attempts to use a dimensional bomb to eliminate the whole Bat team. Riddler sabotages the device because he wants to beat Batman intellectually. So all it seems to do is knock Batgirl off her feet, and the battle continues. Interesting. There's a lot you can do with that. Creation of unions within work industries, and creation of guilds for services and crafts / goods. What it actually does is make a copy of Batgirl who appears in a version of Gotham where all the Waynes survived, and thus there never was a Batman. Ooh, that's interesting.
Breaking down, changing, or even reinforcing barriers to social mobility historically. We see how this works in the Elder Scrolls series. The emergence of the Fighters Guild lent power, wealth, and status to laymen.
Cute
With 6
Muffin!
viewers.
Shit,
Welcome,
buddy,
leaders,
welcome,
to the stream.
welcome! How's it going, man? Fat stream today, bro!
Oh, I will be there.
Hell yeah.
Daddy's home.
Great views today. See you all tomorrow. Fuck you! Sounds good, Muffin. Have a great night, good sir. I am happy for you, good sir. Keep it up, man. We believe. You're already there!
When Hockey heard you the first time.
Not seeing the guys and assuming the radio malfunction, she goes to the cave, only to find no tech, but a stash of silver hidden by the Waynes in the Depression and since forgotten about. Interesting. Welcome everyone. I'm Intoxication. We do writing and world building and just general creativity and thinking and, all that kind of good stuff. So if you have any ideas, if you're a writer, if you have any, anything you want me to read, you can drop it in the Discord. And, yeah. We are today doing How Class Systems Fall and comparing my world building in my book to the Greats.
System that they otherwise would not have. Members have legal exemptions for weapons, can demand higher payments for jobs, and are well respected. Guilds and unions give people a lot of bargaining power that challenge the way the class system works. Consider what unique privileges of power, wealth, and status that guilds and unions give its members. Guilds and unions, like the UK miners in the 1980s, have used their control of a large portion of the economy to boycott or pressure government bodies to enact laws that they want. Both unions and guilds increase the social mobility of their members, but they can also restrict the social mobility of non-members by either denying membership or resisting change that would disadvantage them, becoming part of the strictures of a new class system themselves.
If you recall from that series, Barbara Gordon put on a costume and pretended to be Batman in order to support her father. Well, this world's Barbara does the same thing, only she gets caught by thugs and Batgirl must save her. Damn. Rough.
The Lies of Lochlamora by Scott Lynch alludes to how guilds can become so powerful manipulative of individuals in its world building. One night a powerful sorcerer knocks on the door of a less powerful sorcerer. "Hey, I'm starting an exclusive guild," he says. "Join me now or I'll blast you out of your boots right where you stand." So naturally the second mage says, "I always wanted to join a guild." Right. Repeat as necessary until 300 or 400 guild members are knocking on the door of the last independent mage around, and everyone who said no is dead. In other words, class systems are complicated.
That's very interesting idea. I mean, that's one way to accumulate power. I'm thinking like Fight Club here. Like, have everyone hiding in the shadows, and then once everyone starts to realize that everyone is actually, like, the same, with the nod kind of thing, and it's like, oh shit, where are we going from here? So, it's definitely very interesting.
A second way that class systems peacefully change or end is if the philosophy behind how the class system should work changes. Government programs,
religion and history being... This one was like, Batgirl proceeds to read Barbara the Riot Act, which ends in the wall slam, like a lover about to kiss her. Then Batgirl removes her cowl, revealing Barbara's own angry face staring at her. She then say, "I may be you, but I can't fool our father. Leave the night to me, please." I think I read that kings were selected based on bloodline gods' mandate instead of merit, which meant people who weren't like good leaders became kings, which changed later after Confucianism. That's very true, Callie. Most, like, I'd say, like, it's like a, what's the meme? Hard life creates strong men. Strong men create good time, or peaceful times. Peaceful times create weak men. Weak men create war times. War times create hard men. Hard men create peaceful times. And it's just this cycle of the people that made the world the way it is, and then their generations down the line letting the world slip through their fingers. So and so, by divine right, is crowned King of Britain. Wait until you find out about democracy. Levi, welcome. How's it going, brother? It's very true. That's why democracy is a very sketchy thing, especially, like, a lot of people don't consider this, but, like, they're like, oh, democracy is the best way of like doing things. It's like, well, technically in a democracy there's always a loser. And the more that the more evenly split the divide is, so it's like 51 to 49, then it's like 49% of your country is like unhappy with the results of democracy. And I feel like this is a very specific thing to fucking Canada right now, because we just fucking re-elected the shit that everyone was saying, man, we need to get these guys out, and then we just went and re-elected them. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? Yeah, the Founding Fathers fought a war about taxes at less than 1%. Look at us now. Nearly 30% of our income goes to the government. Only the poorest get any of it back. And the richest basically get subsidies for it. Like the idea, the existence of losers isn't a solid argument against... Oh, I'm not saying it's a solid argument against any system. I'm just saying legitimacy of the means by which losers are determined. Yeah. I'm just saying, in a democracy, like, there are losers. So you have to be willing to be a loser and be on the losing side if you want a true democratic process, right? So it's like, that's kind of like a suspension of disbelief moment where it's like, you know, it's like, I drive a car, but that doesn't mean I support people hitting people with cars, you know? It's like, I don't endorse accidents or people hitting people with cars or other cars hitting cars just because I drive a car.
Against reflect a changing belief in the validity of the caste system. Even in 1984, Dr. Abraham Thomas wrote, "Does caste exist in India? Sure it does, but not the same as it was 200."
It's not like there aren't any Hitlers in the world, right? I mean, I'm just, what happened yesterday morning? Anyone know what happened yesterday morning that, you know, is of significant global impact? Anyone have any idea? I wish I could recall the exact way Hop talked about Hitler in that one essay. I mean, in and among all the bad ideas, you can still have some good ideas. Just like in and among all the good ideas, you can still have some... yeah, but that's, like, not actually, like, globally and, like, politically and just, like, could be world-changing kind of shit, right? That was just the day. But something did happen that was very important. And fucked up. Revenge of the 5th, aka Cinco de Mayo, A Day of Many Hangovers, is pretty strictly negative about Hitler, but in a way that implicates other people who are at least rhetorically Hitler. Yeah, and it's like, most of the things don't even have to do with, like, genocide or, like, the Jews. It's just, like, the idea of, like, lesser people and, like, the idea of thinking of lesser people as animals and doing, like, medical experimentation on animals. But they're humans. But we only consider them animals because they're not Aryan. And it's, like, degrading to that level, and there's a lot of people that have that rhetoric who are like, these people aren't human, right? They're less than human, they're subhuman in some way, shape, or form. But anyways, the Houthis fucking attacked Israel at the main international airport and bombed it with a missile. Very big shit. But anyways, the idea of in a world where shit that after the US spanked them for firing on one of our jets. Well, it's like they're just being fucking retarded. Oh, dang, another reason to be glad I'm not an Israeli. Yeah, true, Levi, I know, right? Like, fucking... But it's like with all the crazy shit that's been going on, it's like, well, what the fuck? And then it was like the whole Hassan Ethan thing for, like, the debate that they had the other day. Going on about the Houthis deserving a fucking Nobel Peace Prize. And then they fucking bomb an airport. I mean, it's the way the world is, man. Even in among all of the ideas that we have, people still support, or like the whole Carmelo Anthony and Shiloh, whatever the fuck her name is, shit, Hendrick or whatever, where it's like people, like the fucking literal goddamn race war, internet fucking race war, then the Israeli not honoring the contracts to try and negotiate it. The other faiths and stop the violence. Yeah, it's just like the Ukraine. It's like they technically don't want to stop fighting because stopping fighting basically means that they've lost. So they'd rather fight to the death than admit that they lost, which is a fucking terrible thing for a leader to do, right? But anyways, it's fun being in another part, at another point in internet culture where I keep seeing crime statistics. I mean, I don't really look into shit like that because I don't really care enough. I'm like, I understand there's just as much bad as there is good in the world, but I still believe the cup is half full.
Years ago, or even 100, or even 20 years ago. For an example from our modern day society, journalist Ben Tarnoff writes, "Today's top executives are devoted work worshippers. These individuals aren't working out of necessity. It's about the display of productivity as a symbol of class power. In an era of extreme inequality, elites need to demonstrate to themselves and others they deserve to own orders of magnitude more wealth than everyone else. What we're seeing is that our own class system, which largely accepted...
I guess this is actually like the creation of wealth. Because they don't have money. So it's like the creation of Gil. Creation of Gil. Currency. To facilitate the work. And this is going from a... like barter system of traded what do you call it, skills. I do this for you, you do this for me. And then like, no, I follow racists and they like posting it. If you looked up crime stats to get a reasonable number for a story, then your feed is filled with that evermore. Dude, I like one picture and all of a sudden my entire thing is fucking hentai. And I'm like, are you kidding me? How did that even happen? And then I noticed that it was like a progression of pictures of the chick like losing her clothes. And I was like, how the fuck did I not see that? I'm a fucking idiot. And then it just spams you with fucking everything. What else? Creation of Gil to facilitate those who wanted power facilitated the exchange and distribution of Gil, i.e. bankers. The bankers they're very, very important in this as well as a show of power. And I've never thought about that either, because the economy and the currency has never been significantly thought through. It's just we know that gil is the currency they use because that's just what the gil is in, like, that's just one of the parts of Final Fantasy is the currency is called gil.
Inherited wealth is now changing as political and economic tensions begin to climb to emphasize non-inherited wealth. Our definition of status is changing, and the class system is too. But these are good changes.
There
right?
he is!
Well, a lot of these are. The Nazis are also an example of people changing their philosophy to believe in a class system
32
based on
views
racial
on
hierarchy
chapter
and
4.
loyalty to the
Nice,
state. Not all
Sean.
social changes good. So consider 1, positive changes to the distribution of wealth, power, and status, and 2, negative changes to the
Scammers, cheaters, liars, and backstabbers get their shit that was coming to them, i.e. the guy who has 100 favors stacked to do but never does them. And this is like the back to the merit system and how the public perceives you. Kind of like a social credit score, right? If you're a bad actor and you just do retarded shit, then people are going to treat you that way. And then you kind of have to build your merit back up by being like, hey, I was a kid, now I've grown up, you know, I'm not retarded anymore, I can do what I need to fucking do. And that it just goes on from there, right?
distribution of wealth, power, and status across history. Part 2. Violent change. Finally, the more exciting stuff. Why would you have healthy, gradual class change when you can have blood? Now, revolution and civil war happen for a...
In real life, there's a real shift, at least in the middle class, from placing high status in material wealth to basing high status in social capital. True.
Myriad of reasons, so we're just going to focus on the class aspects of it. Class tensions are major internal economic and political forces in society, so it's no surprise that the 1917 Russian Revolution, the Spanish Civil War, the Finnish Civil War, the Chinese Revolution, and so many others are underpinned by class tensions. The different sides aren't just ideologically different, but economically different, though lower class people are of course conscripted to either side without much choice. Charles Dickens explored this in his book A Tale of Two Cities. He goes out of his way to highlight the economic and social divide that led up to the French Revolution, more than he did the ideas of liberty, justice, and blah blah blah, all that sort of nonsense, which is what we often talk about when we think of the French Revolution. See, though historical, it was important word building to help us believe.
Interesting note, a lot of people think that the French Revolution was, like the common people uprising against the rich. But it's actually the rich uprising against royalty. It had nothing to do with, like, the poor common man. They were just pulled into it because that's just the way that it was, right? You're just dragged in it because you have no control over the situation.
And understand how the revolution was inevitable or realistic. Those idealistic concepts might be there for your heroes.
And that's kind of like the split in the tree. So we have, like, you know, the... what do you call them? We'll just call them social class based on, not job, but hobby. Royals refused to act on the famine, and she said, let them eat cake, as if it was available for the commoners at all. Yup. And that's kind of a problem when you have, like, a disconnect between the royals and royalty and the middle class and the, you know, lower end of society. And that's why it's, like, kind of important for apocryphal story, but it's neat. Yup, those are the best kinds of ones, though, right?
But the average working person is more concerned with peace, bread, and land.
Oh, right. Based on hobby, i.e., sex, drugs, violence. These degenerates are separated from normal society by facilitating their needs in their own separate environment. This pulls the bottom 15% of population out of the main construct of society, allowing for those who do not wish progress but simply stagnate, fall behind the common belief system. When nobles forget that they are public servants and believe they are better than others, and that blood carries divine right to rule, the country is doomed to fail. I gotta go cook on my own stream now. How fun. They were never public servants at all. Well, they were facilitating a role that you could consider being a public service. But not public servants. Just they are providing a service, which most of them, like, by owning companies and facilitating, like, development of government structures. And usually the royalty themselves had a material wealth to back their endeavors, I guess you would say. Okay, let's do it. Let's do it. How do I lose every time?
Well, they're thinking about
I'm fucking so bad.
years. Popular support for violent class change doesn't spring out of nowhere. Consider showing the economic tensions that underpin the divide, and more importantly, the economic reform that both sides believe need to happen. And with a peaceful or
This is where I just thought about, like, the separation of the Adventurers Guild and the tree is like the separation of two countries, like Brexit or something like that. The original head of the family did something amazing for the nation as a whole. They were truly noble. But with each generation after that, they got worse. They were part of a citizenry, and that's enough that they should consider poor people to be their peers, in at least some sense. Yeah, it's just the idea that absolute power corrupts absolutely, right? Just like slowly over time, you become more and more numb and comfortable with the things that don't affect you directly, but you, like, positively affect you, but don't negatively affect you, let's say. But anyways, enjoy your stream, Levi. Good luck, good sir. Hopefully we'll finish the video within 4 hours this time. But it's not looking good. We're at 6 minutes and it's an hour. That's on track to be like 3.5 hours. But hey,
violent, it's important to consider whether the change is top-down or bottom-up. So, you know how in Shakespeare...
what about horizontal? Nobles didn't have absolute power. They were accountable for crimes they committed, but they weren't accountable for the general well-being of other citizens. I mean, in some cases... That said, yeah, I gotta leave. Or I'll stick around forever. True, Levi. I'm gonna take a toke, and that'll give you the opportunity to leave. Because there will be no content for you to absorb. Duties of any noble house, even a baronry, were so time-consuming that they had almost no time to raise their children. Without that parental love and gentle guidance, they couldn't learn how to be noble of character. That's actually a really good point, Sean. That most of the children of, like, the nobles in that case were raised by, like, servants. They weren't raised by... And imagine, like... How often are these nobles not even on their own property? How much do they have to travel around, right? How much time of the year do they spend traveling and at home? They probably spend like 2.5 months at home. The rest of the time of the year they're traveling and doing shit that they have to do in order to maintain the country. So yeah, that is actually a very, very important concept there.
Is Hamlet.
And kind of one of the things in the tree is the concept that the very first generation never taught anything to their children. The servants couldn't spank the children either. They could only scold them, which doesn't mean anything. Yeah, especially when the child absolutely knows that at the end of the day, they're not going to have any punishment no matter what they do. So it just becomes their character. And most of the time, they're trying to act out for attention, which causes a lot more problems.
Actually, no. Let's go with the Lion King, otherwise known as Hamlet, but fluffy. Scar rules the land, placing the hyenas higher in the class system than they ought to be, and the land suffers for it. But then, Simba becomes king and he heals the land from a position of wealth, power, and status. This is a top-down change. In contrast, The Slaves of the Mastery by William Nicholson shows a radical slave society being overthrown by a class of enslaved people who have no power, wealth, and little status. This is bottom-up change. Now, in fiction, these two different types of change provide for usually different types of stories. Top-down change stories allow for lost heirs to the throne, a more idealistic ending like The Return of the King, where defeating a bad ruling class solves the problems without worrying too much about the more complex real-world questions. And that's okay, not every story needs to go into this sort of stuff. It's also important to know that real-world top-down change is often a little out of touch with reality because fewer people are involved in making decisions, and this can lead to economic and social problems. In contrast, bottom-up change stories typically allow for underdog characters, revolutionary tales like Mistborn, where the arc is them acquiring wealth, power, and status till they can challenge the status quo. Real-world bottom-up change is grassroots democracy, but it's also often more violent because it naturally brings those without power, wealth, and status into conflict with those who do.
Yep.
Though, historically an important factor in this type of change is some support from the top in some form. Catching Fire by Suzanne Collins explores this through Plutarch Heavensby, who works with the resistance from the capital to get Katniss out. Part 3. After Class. Littlefinger was right when he said,
Chaos is a ladder.
in A Storm of Swords by George R. R. Martin, Daenerys overthrows the slave-driven class system of Astapor. Chaos was left in its wake. Now, Daenerys did set up a council to rule the city with a semi-egalitarian class system, but it doesn't stick. A group of ex-slaves, now a free class, forcefully take power and the council cannot stop it. See, the council doesn't really control the city's resources or the military, not really, but this faction of ex-slaves become a strong enough force to do so. See, class isn't just an idea. Class is about the realistic and practical distribution of power, wealth, resources, opportunities, social standing. So, a change in the class system is often just really about a redistribution of those things to different groups of people, creating a new class system, which may be better or worse. As for how
In that case, it would be like, I'm thinking like the creation of the avians and the insectoids facilitates an entirely new idea after the war. Because now it's not just octopi. But octopi are the only ones who kind of have any knowledge towards this, whereas the avians and the insectoids, you know, there'll be some sort of propaganda bullshit kind of thing that goes in there as to, like, how they convince the avians and the insectoids to fight against the beastmen, essentially. But it's like they're they were created in the middle of the war, so it could easily be said that the first ones were basically told that they're they're in a sheltered area, they're under attack, they don't know how long they're going to be able to survive, and then because of genetic manipulation, the first few generations of the avians and the insectoid exploded the population, right? Like we're talking like 100-fold, 1,000-fold the initial population of like 40 or 50 of each of them, until there's like hundreds of thousands of them now, right? Like they're like, of let's say the 3.5 million in the tree, or the 5 million total, they're like 20% of the population. So there's like 40% avian and insectoid combined, and then 60% octopi. So octopi in general have a larger percentage because it's 60 to 20 and 60 to 20. But it's almost even once you combine all three of the races. So it's a very statistical anomaly for you to be able to pick out like different propaganda points of being like the percentage of the population that's a certain class or a certain race, right? And this is where the fanatics get the idea of the octopi basically suppressing avians and insectoids, and it just kind of goes through this manipulative spectrum. So the afterclass of the Adventurer Exodus is fall of material like possessions, like, how do I say this, like fall of the production of many high-end goods that pertain to status. Like the idea of jewelry, like clothing and stuff. Like if you were rich inside of the tree, essentially, you could afford to buy like adventurer gear. And it's like people that had adventurer gear that weren't adventurers, that's like a social status, being like, oh shit, he can afford to fucking cosplay. And it's like the same as actors that have their own outfits for plays. So they can play different characters in different plays with their own costumes without having to worry about like the generic use costumes. So it's like the best plays are not just because they have the best actors, but it's because the best actors have the best costumes. So it's like a scaling effect of continuation of just better things. The better things are, the better things can get better, which betters things for getting better and bettering things, right? Compound interest in a way.
How that happens? Think about which group practically controls resources and military force afterwards. They will form an important part of the new social class order.
And despite the fact that the monarch controls the military force, he's relying on a bluff. That people think that he basically has omnipotence inside of the tree. That he can see anything and stop anything from happening. And he lets certain things happen to weed people out. And then to show them as examples. Right? Which is kind of true, but not really, because he's not omnipotent, but he does have, like, quite a sight range, let's say, because there's a lot of genetic engineering and technology involved, but the idea of, like, cameras and shit throughout the entirety of the tree, so we can basically spy on people. Stuff like that. There is a big portion for the what to do with the Adventurers Hall and the Adventurers Guild inside of the tree. Because at some point in time, it basically the contents of it have to be emptied and moved to Ifrit. And this is like a logistical thing that the Monarch understands has to happen. But I don't know how to facilitate it. Or everything just gets destroyed and Zaid's fucking useless anyways and should have left. But that's a story for another day. All of the crafting and everything. So, like, basically everyone loses their material wealth, and then they start to realize, oh shit, should we have kicked the adventurers out? Like, we can't get any more jewelry. Like, we're all our food is gonna, like, oh my god, we just realized that we're not gonna have food anymore. Uh-oh. And it's like the repercussions and the ripples of this, of people who didn't even think about it, start to take into effect. And this is like kind of in the Monarch's mind, people are going to retract it. But even if the Monarch does retract it, at this point, because of Zaid's death, even if the Monarch was like, yeah, okay, we rescind it, you guys can come back into the tree, we were just, you know, trying to make a very, this transition as peaceful as possible, even though we had a fatality. Which I did. But, you know, it's okay, don't worry about it, guys, come back into the tree. And the Adventure Guild's like, only reason we're coming back into the tree is fucking kick your motherfucking ass, bitch.
Regardless of the war or revolution's idealistic aims, it's about who has the infrastructure to support them afterwards. Think about Kuvira in The Legend of Korra. She takes over after an anarchist plot decimates the ruling class of Ba Sing Se, the capital. She's a military leader, and the military is one of the only factions left with a nationwide organizational infrastructure left. They pick up the pieces, and who is there to challenge them? The French Revolution is famous for turning to tyranny in its aftermath. See, a new class system will often form out of the remnants of the last, especially if there is chaos or violence. This is also
and there's still always going to be a clash. So it's like the Beastmen sympathizers, i.e. the concubine and viceroy. You know, I'm just gonna start calling her the vice president, because that's essentially what she is. She's the vice president. And the fanatical Beastmen haters.
Fascinating place for a story, a post-revolution world where they're trying to realize these revolutionary ideals, but it's more complicated than that. This is kind of the world of A Song of Ice and Fire. It's after the revolution, trying to realize these new ideals, and, well, and things go pretty wrong pretty quickly. You could take a deep look at what a world is like from the perspective of people who didn't have any wealth, power, or status before, and suddenly find themselves in a new order where they have too much of it, or too little of it. The reality is class isn't simple. No.
Class systems are complicated.
Realistically, class systems change, but they always leave a remnant of the past of sorts. Frank Herbert's Dune series sees the fall of the Farfarug feudalistic system, which uses terms like Lord, Viceroy, and Duke, but these terms survive the class system's end, and they evolve in what they mean in the book Heretics of Dune. Everything doesn't just suddenly change like that. We can see the history and how he world built this new kind of class system. The question for you as the world builder is this: what class systems did your society go through in the past, and how is that reflected now, linguistically, socially, and economically? Well,
we've gone from let's see, a tribal state to small villages to a single community for a single goal to development of technology to a single nation to like a divine leader in the monarch and the viceroy leading, like, they're basically, like, their ideas, their thoughts, and their intentions align so well with what the people want that they become the rulers. And then they set up a system that facilitates their own existence, which is the royalty. And for like thousands of years, they've modified octopi to be able to breathe air and send the dome city to the surface of the ocean. So in this meantime, there's still the octopi that were watching the events unfold and like supervising the experiment. And then those are modern day, because this is like 3,500, 600 years later, maybe 4,000 years later, depending upon how long the original Beast War lasted, before the monarch pulled the moon out of the sky. And then the 600 years from the fall of the moon to now. I lost every single one. Let's go. Lost every single one. Here we go. Wait, what? Oh, I meant to do raffle. I typed gamble instead of raffle because I was just thinking it. So you gotta rejoin, Sean. Rejoin or I'm gonna win automatically, bro. Oh, looks like I win. Streamer luck, bro. That's just how it goes. Okay, I'll do another one. There you go. Now you're in it. We are winning. Ooh, yes. It wouldn't let me resend because it matched my previous message. Lol. Oh, that sucks. Okay, we'll do another one. Whoops. Fuck! Oh, wait, did I not join? Wait, did you join? Uh-oh, I don't know. I didn't notice. Shit. Right at the end! Fuck! Well, that's how it goes. So we got tribal, nation, 2 nations, 1 land, 1 water. Beastman War. It's like a martial law for monarch and viceroy to take total control. Fall of the moon causes them to fall back to dome. In dome. The monarch does something that makes it so that like people like don't pass on the knowledge of the Beastman War. So it's something along the lines of says to people that if the next generations learn of the outside world and its ways, then we may be doomed, as people would wish to leave the tree. The disappointment at losing points from the man who can just add as many points as he wants is quite comical. Yeah, I know, right? it's the over-exaggeration and just ridiculousness of it that I can be like... I mean, at some point in time, it's too many. Okay, just set it to, like, the maximum. Let's go. Fuck, man! This is bullshit! Game's fucking rigged. I swear to God. So dumb. So fucking dumb. After tree... next generations decide on the government status presented by the monarch who resides himself as the military power, allowing creation of a public, independent, democratic system for the preservation of the public's concerns. Preservation sounds bad in that case. For the eradication of public concerns. Man, we're just terrible at gambling, Sean. Let's hope TwitchCon 2020... At this point, yeah, 2027? Let's hope TwitchCon 2027 doesn't have any gambling aspects, or I'm cooked, dude. I'm fucking cooked. Government takes full control. Now a democracy. Adventurers considered outside of tree, so they forfeit their voting privileges. No, you're bad at gambling. I'm great at strategically using the gamble all command to zero my points.
And how is that reflected now, linguistically, socially, and economically? Part 4. Plague. During the feudal age, peasants were replaceable labor.
Help! Help! I'm being repressed! Bloody peasant!
But after the Black Plague, that wasn't so true anymore, forcing the feudalistic class system to change to give them wages, wealth, and their skills.
And that's kind of like, so we could say the plague is something like the adventurer guild creation and the adventurers leaving the tree. Seriously. When you weren't here, and I did gamble all, and I won, I was like, damn it! Plague. I meant. True, Callie. So in the way that the plague facilitated a change in the class system, the creation of the Adventurers Guild, because the population diminished inside of the tree. Oh, damn, Callie, congratulations. Okay, here we go, guys. Let's do it. First time I won? Nice. Here we go. Join up. Let's get some points, boys. You know what happens when I get the points. Don't join. Perfect, Callie. That's fucking perfect. You gotta wait 3 seconds. It's a global cooldown. Yes! Okay, here we go. Gamble all. Yes! Fuck!
Do not drink water. Do not leave your seat. Do not move your feet. Do not stretch. Do not go to the bathroom. Have another toke.
True! So the adventure, like creation of the Adventurers Guild and people leaving the tree left gaps in the labor force, essentially, for the creation of like basic goods and facilitation of the expansion of society inside of the tree. Because this is like a baby boomer kind of generation, like at this point. Like, this is like 3 generations of baby boomers in a world where there's like kind of no strife. But now that people have gone out into the world, they've discovered the past, the history, things, ideas beyond their scope. It's starting to make them question where they are now. And then this this gap in the labor force, creation of guild and currency. So it's like everything just falls on itself once you line it all up, right? Did you do those instruction following tests in school where the first instruction is to sign your name and put the date on top? Second instruction is to read all the instructions before doing any. Then you get ridiculous instructions until the last one that say to only follow instructions 1 and 2. No, but that sounds fucking hilarious. Do a backflip. The fuck do you mean do a backflip? Do a backflip. One of the instructions. Before you write anything down, do a backflip. Oh, wait. Why are all these kids trying to do backflips? They're fucking idiots. They didn't read all the instructions. Why does that one have like a clown face on? They didn't read all the fucking instructions. They're fucking retards. Seeing it after us standing on their desk and clucking like a chicken or barking like a dog. Yeah, exactly right. Oh my god.
Were rarer, giving them a kind of status. The nobility did try to stop this with immense taxes and the Statute of Labourers in 1351, but economic and social pressures won out and succeeded over time with the end of feudalism. So, firstly, plague can change the economic worth of large classes of individuals as their skills become more valuable during and after the plague, giving them leverage in changing the class system. Secondly, people fled the cities during the Black Plague to the countryside, the rich and the poor. The result was a decentralization of power across Europe as cities declined, where disease has...
And that's kind of like, specifically to the adventurers, cities outside the tree. Decentralize government, but a single upheld federal law. Each city working as a single state with small villages and surrounding towns being almost like fiefdoms of the main cities. I mean, federal law is just how to lose adventurer license. State laws in fiefdoms loaded by adventurers in the adventurers living in the area. These are registered citizens of a city, not the unregistered. I don't know what to call them. Mercenaries. And like the idea of a true adventurer. The other ones are usually like people that have stopped adventuring. You know, they've like settled down. Ah, that's a good way to say it. People who have settled down. There we go. That's a good way of putting it.
Is struck historically will shift the geographical centers of power, wealth, and status, like capital cities in your world, as the upper class either flees or they die and new powers rise up. Thirdly, this
First time it got me. The second time I read everything and was one of 5 students who did so. Third time I only read the first 2 instructions, recognized the joke, looked at the last instruction, and finished within a minute, along with one other guy, and we just shook our heads at everyone else who had been caught again. Yup, people are fucking dumb.
This is all intensified by disease impacting lower income families more on average. Tolkien wrote about a great plague across Middle-earth that was greater in Ravanian, which had no great cities. Its people were little skilled in the arts of healing and medicine. Lower classes or less advanced civilizations lack healthcare, have fewer resources, and often an inability to self-isolate. This means that there may be differences in the class system distribution of wealth, power, and status depending on where the disease strikes. The working class of the place hit hardest may be able to demand more in the post-disease world, leading to an emergent middle class. Part 5. War. War challenges the class system in a similar way to how plague does, as people, shockingly, die.
Fall
World War I means
of
that those
Garuda.
who previously being part-timers or casual laborers or unemployed
Rise
can suddenly earn good
of
money and feed
Fafnir.
themselves. However, it also challenges the class norms that underpin wealth, power, and
Exodus
status. In Britain,
of
women
the
became an employed
adventurers.
class in factories and shops to help the war effort,
The
and it meant that they demanded the vote, getting power.
completion of
But
the
the relationship
100-year
between class and war
quest.
also heavily depends on how popular the war is. As York University history professor Gerald Jordan
Finding
wrote, conscription
of
and the direction of
Atolls.
labour made for a more inclusive sense of national identity in 1914 Britain. Nationalism was one legacy of the war. Although war sensitized workers to class inequality, nationalist sentiments in popular culture set limits on the political consequences of class feeling. War can give a cultural feeling of purpose.
Yeah. Purpose to adventurers who feel they have completed the game. They've done everything. They don't know what else to do. They're the top class, and it's like, ooh, war? Let's fucking go. Fuck! Why? I don't think I've won a single one. Oh, I've won one. I won one. I can't... fucking can't complain. I won one. Jesus goddamn Christ. Fuck!
To inequalities. It
Hate
can
this
be
game.
used by the powers that be to quell those tensions or create a sense of a bigger picture. But this doesn't always work. In contrast, Russia.
Is there... Okay, question then. Does the Beastman War and the Exodus of the adventurers from the tree demand a conscription mechanic for the adventurers under Husai? That's a good question. once Husai is lifted up again, and it's like he's like, all right, let's fucking do this shit, and he's ready to go. He's basically commanding everyone. They've got the Adventurers Guild completely against the Monarch at this point. So they're like, okay, well, we got nowhere to go back to, but hey, if at least, maybe if we defeat... You're like a lemming who sees his buddy leap off the cliff and into the ocean, and is like, oh, me too, I'm going to! Yeah! Woo! Yeah, true. So fucking true. Monkey see, monkey do.
In World War I, they had long work hours, the cost of living were already an issue, and they were made worse due...
Standardization of... Standardization of equipment across the adventurers to allow low levels to participate in certain ways. Gophers. Where'd Tarzan go? Sora, go, go! Yet he never started dancing when they got there. He promised Tarzan he'd go, go. True.
Due to the demands of the war, and it all contributed to the 1917 Bolshevik Revolution. The Bolsheviks promised peace, bread, and land, and that's because when you strip away the facade of idealistic concepts of justice and equity, people just want to go home and have stability. If there are class tensions, then how popular is that war? Which tensions is it making worse, and which is it easing? Though I do want to note that war doesn't usually stop these tensions, it just puts them on pause for a few years, often then returning with a vengeance. Seriously, go read about how many strikes there were in Germany in World War I during the war and then after the war. All of it leading up to, well, you know what.